Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. Today's show is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico and see all the ways that you can save. I am Daniel. This is Field. Our friend Liz Loza, we think, is somewhere with us. We don't know because we can't see anything in the studio. But Liz, it's great to hear you in my ear. Really glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Daniel. I am so glad to be back with the three of us, and I'm glad you're feeling better.
Oh my gosh, I am feeling so much better, in part because the Detroit Lions were able to bring home a W this week. And here's the thing.
I called it.
Field called it, so in Field's favor, in Field's honor, I wore this shirt I have. A Field as a spicy tomato in her.
That's a throwback. Wow. Yeah, because Daniel and I, we play in a league of all Michigan men. I'm the exception. Massachusetts, whatever, close enough to Michigan, and all Lions fans. And this morning, I just asked the group, does anybody else have the feeling that I'm feeling right now of a Lions win? And to be honest with you, Daniel, the responses were hilarious because after all the years, I don't know, probably have a combined, 200 years of Lions fandom in that group. And let's say the optimism wasn't exactly high because you guys have like muscle memory, right? Like, oh, the Lions are favored, or oh, the Lions might win. No, they'll find a way to lose. The Lions win, baby. The Lions win.
It was pretty fantastic. Everybody was really happy in my house, but we got a lot of really awesome storylines to be able to talk about.
Yeah.
And speaking of awesome storylines, Liz, we're just going to start with you because right off the top, I don't know how you talk. Liz, sorry, we're going to talk with you, Field.
Thank
sorry.
you. I was going to say.
I don't know how we start with anybody other than Joe Mixon because the dude had himself a day. Just talk about Joe Mixon.
His history, Daniel. If you like a player that finishes with over 55 fantasy points in one game, I've got news for you. You're going to like yourself Joe Mixon in Week 9. Just an historic day for Joe Mixon, who had, on the ground, 22 carries for 153 yards. That by itself is good, right? He had 4 rushing touchdowns. As if that wasn't good enough, he had 4 catches for 58 yards and another receiving touchdown as well. This is the same Joe Mixon who we've been talking about recently, who is only maintaining value because of his volume. The volume has been elite. The production has not. Today, it was downright ridiculous. 55.1 fantasy points. That's the best game by any player since week 17 last season. That was Jamar Chase, which doesn't feel like that long of a span, but still one of the all-time great games. The record for most fantasy points in PPR scoring in NFL history is Jamal Charles with like 59.5. Joe Mixon almost got there, and he played like 3 quarters for the Bengals. They absolutely drubbed the Panthers. Joe Mixon looked fantastic. Bengals offense way back on track. They're kind of a yo-yo team, right? Like they played great a few weeks ago. Then they go on a little bit of a losing skid. Monday night looked terrible against the Browns. Here they are back. Thank you, Joe Mixon, because if anybody out there has Joe Mixon, I'm telling you, I'm not ESPN's FPI, but your win percentage went up. Your projected win percentage went up by like 37% if you have Joe Mixon. What a day from Joe Mixon.
True or false, Tyler Fulgham talked about him getting in the end zone on Fantasy Football Now.
You said it, not me.
Okay.
And listen, Mike Clay is so good at his job that I hate when he has a very rare miss. But Mike and Tyler had a bet as to whether or not Joe Mixon would find the end zone. Ooh. Mike, bet against. Tyler bet for. It turns out both of them were wrong, right? Because I think Tyler said, like, yeah, I'll probably find the end zone. Maybe you'll find it, right?
There.
They both lost because Joe Mixon had 5 tutties on Sunday.
Listen, if you started Joe Mixon this week, you probably got a W. If you started Justin Fields, you also probably got a W this week. And Liz, I talked about him earlier this week on Thursday about Squirrel Stock Up saying, hey, they're utilizing his legs more, right?
Yeah.
I didn't expect this. Justin Fields made me look way smarter than it was supposed to be, but as a resident Bears fan, please talk to us about what these Bears are doing.
Also, Liz on the Justin Fields as her sleeper quarterback preseason train. Take it away.
Well, can we call him by his real name, by his government name, Baby Jalen Hurts? That's what we should be calling him. In fact, when the trade deadline happened and there was all of this activity and Chase Claypool is going to the Bears, and there's a thought that maybe in addition to dismantling the defense and rebuilding, they might actually be leaning into the evolution of Justin Fields as a passer. I don't think it's a coincidence that today he recorded his highest number of pass attempts on the season. It's only 28, but baby, I will take it. Yes, the story is obviously his legs, but now we're getting a combination of both. And that combination is keeping opposing defenses guessing so that he isn't just getting stuffed all the time. I am a little bit worried, about his long-term health, because obviously that's a concern with mobile quarterbacks, but with the number of successful, efficient runs that he is ripping off, we are loving it. Over the past 3 weeks, fantasy points, 23, 26, today, 42.
Whoa.
He passed for 123 yards and 3 touchdowns. Again, passed for 123 yards and 3 touchdowns, 15 carries for another, this is the big story, right? 178 yards and a touchdown, 42.7 fantasy points. Upcoming schedule, Detroit. Well, let's just pause for a second, right, Daniel? We'll discuss that right now. We're going to leave that be, and we'll come back to it in the future.
Okay.
Then he's at Atlanta. Then he's got the Jets. I'm not scared, even though they pulled off a great upset today. Then Green Bay, then on a bye. This is a great upcoming schedule for Fields. He is on fire.
On fire. How do you not start Justin? I mean,
right now, you have to. He's quarterback 1 right now. He's quarterback 1 of the highest scoring game for any quarterback this season, 11th highest scoring game ever. This is just incredible. And the Bears lost the game. There was a very, very bad no call. Chase Claypool was clearly interfered with late in the game that I thought could have changed the outcome of the game. That's neither here nor there. Liz maybe feels differently as a Bears fan, but if I support the Chicago Bears right now, I know the loss stings. If you don't buy what they are selling right now, that's on you, because they're doing some really good things there in Chicago, and nothing is more important than the development of their quarterback, Justin Fields. And while the personnel still getting there, Chase Claypool, a big addition this week, but in his first game, obviously going to be a limited role. Be impressed by the Chicago Bears right now. Justin Fields on the starting radar for a quarterback. He plays your Lions next week, Daniel, by the way.
I didn't need that. Liz already mentioned it once.
How happy are the Cole Kmet truthers, those that were loyal and patient to the Chicago area native? He converted 5 of 6 for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's now 3 scores over his past 2 weeks. Kmet is available in over 70% of ESPN fantasy leagues. I have a feeling that our friend Eric Moody is going to discuss him tomorrow, but I'm going to get in there first since I rep Chicago.
Wow.
And they covered, so I don't even care that they lost.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
She's got the right attitude.
That's right.
I mean, your team wins and covers.
No big deal.
But,
no big deal. You'll get
good showing for the Bears.
No big deal. All right, let's talk about, for me, I want to talk about Tua Tagovailoa and
Wagons.
These Dolphins.
Wagons.
My gosh.
Dogs.
Okay, so here's the thing about Tua. Last 2 weeks, he's had at least 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks.
That's
right?
pretty good, right?
He has his third 300-yard, 3-touchdown game this season. I don't understand with the way that this offense is moving, and he's got just 2 unbelievable elite wide receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. There's no way that Tua is not a set-it-and-forget-it starter if you have him at quarterback as long as these 2 wide receivers are healthy. And when I talk about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, the only thing that you can talk about is just how good they both are. I just wish there were more targets to go around so Jalen Waddle could have some more. But he's had 85 or more receiving yards in each of the last 4 games. This is playing with house money if you're the Dolphins.
So if you go around the NFL right now, there are some offenses that you watch them and you're just like, oh my God, this is like painstaking, right? The Packers, the Bucks, the Rams, the Patriots, the Broncos. You're like, can we just get a first down, right? Like the Colts, like, can we literally convert a single third down? Then you watch the Dolphins, and it's college football.
Yes.
Right? It's like you see the spacing, you see the wide open wide receivers, and you're like, this is 5 stars against walk-ons, right? They're doing that every single week now, and it's a sight to see. And Tyreek Hill's now over 1,000 yards. He's on pace for just stupid numbers this entire season.
Got in the end zone this week.
They are balling right now. I'm with you. They've got 3 set it and forget it, as Daniel just said. The quarterback, the 2 wide receivers, they might win you your week every single week.
Yeah, they're going to draw the Browns next week, so we'll see how that plays out. But Liz, something else that we were watching in this Dolphins game was the way that the backfield worked out. Obviously, Jeff Wilson Jr. came in here, but it was still Raheem Mostert's show, but Jeff Wilson Jr. let him know, hey, man,
Sort of.
I'm here.
Well, and it was Raheem Mostert's show because Raheem Mostert got the touchdown. But if you look at the snaps, the division, Wilson 27, Mostert 24, 9 carries apiece for each of these running backs. Wilson was, in fact, more efficient. He managed more yards per carry. So I do think it's really smart real-life football, especially when we think about Mostert's durability issues. And obviously, Jeff Wilson has familiarity, understands the offense, given his history with Mike McDaniel.
Oh, yeah.
And we were worried, right? A lot of people were holding on to Chase Edmonds before he was traded because there needed to be some insurance behind Mostert in case he were to get hurt. And now McDaniel is managing this backfield and trying to keep both of these running backs healthy and fresh. So it is pretty smart. And I think we're probably looking at an RBBC moving forward. The good thing is when you have field stretchers like Jalen Waddle, like Tyreek Hill, the boxes are going to stay light. So I think both of these guys could stay in flex contention, especially with buys and injuries mounting.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, though. This is kind of concerning, to be honest with you, right? Because I kind of thought Raheem Mostert was one of those hidden gems. And instead, this backfield is back to what we thought it was going to be going into the season, as Liz just outlined. So if you have Jeff Wilson on your roster and you kept him for a week because of insurance purposes against Christian McCaffrey and potentially getting injured, you're in luck here, because his value he went from what I thought having basically only insurance value, even in Miami, to having real potential flex value.
Yeah, absolutely.
He looked good today. By the way, he's a good player. Like, Jeff Wilson's a good player. And what was the thing we always talked about with him in San Francisco was limited passing game involvement. 3 catches today.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
Which
through
was
the
nice.
air.
Yeah, really
so
nice.
It is a good thing for the Dolphins offense. Smart, shrewd trade. It might be a bad thing for fantasy football, though, as far as the value of Raheem Mostert is concerned.
Did you see Mike McDaniel yelling at Justin Fields after some of those big long runs?
Was he like?
I think there might have been FanDuel that tweeted out. A bunch of people tweeted out, but he yelled at him, "Stop it!" He was like from the side. He was like, "Stop it! Stop it!" It was just meant to be fun. It was just like, I don't know how you don't root for him.
Hilarious. That's so good.
Speaking of Justin Fields, if he is out there and I'm rostering Aaron Rodgers field, I'm wondering, what am I doing? What am I doing to myself?
What you're doing. This is what you're doing. You see this right here? This is a piece of paper.
Yep.
It's Aaron Rodgers as a fantasy football commodity this year. You're taking this and throwing it as far away as you can. That went like 5 feet because I have a noodle arm. Stinks. Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but this was supposed to be the spot for Aaron Rodgers. This was supposed to be the game where Aaron Rodgers, bad season, but nothing fixes your woes like an opportunity to match up against the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
How many points per game, not fantasy, just real life points, were the Lions allowing to opponents coming into this game this season? How much, if you had to guess?
Like 30?
Yeah, 32.1.
Okay, well,
and that was worst in the NFL.
Yep.
By a lot.
Yep.
They were the worst defense by a lot. And it's not like they've just played like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, right? Like, you guys have had some games against opponents. Like, didn't Bailey Zappi make his first career start against the Lions?
Did. He looked like a freaking superstar.
Yeah, he looked like a Hall of Famer. Aaron Rodgers, who is a Hall of Famer, who is a back-to-back MVP, did nothing today. Once again, nothing. Less than 14 fantasy points for Aaron Rodgers. By the way, he scored one. They had 1 touchdown scored today. It was an Allen Lazard tutty. Like, nothing came easy for them today. I don't know what the value is for Aaron Rodgers, other than, like, if you want to keep him on your roster for respect, but drop him. Aaron Rodgers, coming into today, was quarterback 22 for this season. Quarterback 22. Take away the name. Why would you ever keep a player who's 22nd at the position where only one guy starts? And by the way, after today, we'll have had close to 50% of the league already on bye.
Yeah.
So guys like Josh Allen, you're having them every week of the season going forward. Guys like Justin Herbert, same thing. Like, it's unfathomable how bad this Green Bay Packers offense is. It's unfathomable. And by the way, Romeo Dobbs, who's, I don't know, but their number 1 wide receiver, number 2 wide receiver, which not that that's saying much. He left the game. He got carted off to the locker room.
Early.
He was spotted on crutches after the game. Aaron Jones, who actually is good, he left the game. He went to the locker room. He has crutches after the game as well. The Packers are a mess right now. They are an absolute mess. And what we learned today is what we thought was a possibility coming in, but that possibility felt very small. It doesn't matter who they're playing. You don't trust the Packers at all. Who would have thought that? Allen Lazard, fine. He, once again, was solid. He found the end zone. You can't even trust Aaron Rodgers right now. Like, are the days done? Are they done? I don't know. Are the days done of Aaron Rodgers being a fantasy football starting quarterback? Maybe not. Listen, they play more games beyond this season, and the Packers may reform their offense. No. For the rest of this year, I am convinced it's not going to happen, right? Yeah. For the rest of 2022, it's not going to happen for Aaron Rodgers. But beyond this season, let's have that conversation later. But for this year, I don't know. I mean, if you've been holding on to Aaron Rodgers for some reason other than, like I said, loyalty or respect, don't bother.
The weapons aren't there. The weapons aren't making plays for him.
He's not playing well.
And he's not playing well from that standpoint.
The identity identity is also not there.
Right.
They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
They are a team lost in the wilderness of the not just NFC North, but the entire NFL. I mean, Field mentioned Dobbs going out injured. Christian Watson took another hit and took him a second to get up. Aaron Jones, you also mentioned going out. And then A.J. Dillon fumbles. It's not like, oh, they're really banged up. There's no cohesiveness. And Aaron Rodgers, frankly, I'm going to say it, isn't doing a good job leading this offense either in the locker room or on the field.
Yeah, I listen, I'm a Lions fan, so I have my own thoughts about Aaron Rodgers. But
say whatever you want. This is your chance to shine, dude.
He does not look like the guy, right? The superstar, Hall of Fame quarterback that used to elevate the play of everyone else around him that we talked about made him one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And he is desperately trying to find someone in his offense. And right now, he can't help anybody be better.
You know what, Daniel? I think he misses Davante Adams.
I think he does too. Because I'll tell you what, 10 catches for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns would have been real solid for the Packers today.
Was that every Packers wide receiver this season so far?
Probably so far it has been.
Okay.
But we've been waiting. Like, listen, Davante Adams has been a little bit frustrating because he's sort of been up and down with the way that this Raiders offense has flowed, right? Yeah. However, as far as this, as far as you're concerned, don't look at the targets, look at the fantasy points. Davante Adams, again, crushed it this week. His best game of the season, 3rd game with over 27 fantasy points. And something else, just to, keeping in mind, this is the 4th straight game without Darren Waller. That's a big part of their offense that they are still missing. It's something to be able to see. I don't know what else you do with him.
No, I just say, you know what it was, Daniel? This is catharsis. This is fantasy football catharsis, which, Liz, you can correct me if I'm not using that term correctly because you are the Ivy Leaguer here. But it's like last week you went to bed a little sad. You shed a tear because you were like, my Davante Adams had 1 catch for 3 yards. It was the worst game of his career. At least you had a breakout game from Davante Adams. You may have won your matchup this week because of Davante Adams. A reminder that it's not all bad. And despite the fact that this Raiders offense has been one of the great disappointments in the NFL this season, and despite the fact that the Raiders stink at 2-6, Davante Adams still elite. And good things tend to come, Liz, when you force feed the ball to Davante Adams.
Yeah.
I 100%
Totally agree
agree.
with that.
Also along with the catharsis that you're talking about, I found it romantic that Davante Adams scored his first touchdown at the same moment nearly as Aaron Rodgers was picked off in the end zone for the first time.
No big deal.
Football remains romantic and cathartic.
That happened 3 times. Aaron Rodgers got picked off in the end zone. Oh, you're talking about the Davante Adams touchdowns. Sorry.
Oh, you got picked off 3 times?
Yeah,
In the end zone? I thought it was 2 times in the red zone, twice in the end zone.
3 times in the red zone, twice by Kirby Joseph, once by Aiden
Seems not
Hutchinson.
good.
3 rookies picking off Aaron Rodgers. You know who doesn't throw interceptions or didn't used to throw interceptions was Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyways, sorry, I realized we were talking about Davante Adams and we accidentally switched back.
Yeah, we need more good in our life.
We really do. We really do. Like Austin Eckler, maybe? Liz, you've had Austin Eckler in your life for a while, haven't you?
I mean, I used to, yeah. Now, though, it's nice to see him shining, even if I don't get to be as close to him while it's happening.
Yeah.
On a day in which both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were not available for Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler was 2nd in team targets with 9, just behind Josh Palmer. 7 catches for 24 and a receiving score, as well as 14 carries for 47 rushing yards and a rushing score. This is the 4th time in 5 games that Austin has a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown. Everyone screamed regression, and he said, I don't think so. He was the ESPN consensus RB1 heading into the week. Now, he didn't put up Joe Mixon numbers, but you got to be happy if you're an Eckler investor here. You also probably are happy if you did roll the dice on Josh Palmer in your flex spot, because he did, as I say, lead the Chargers receivers in targets with 10. He caught 8 of those balls for 106 yards. That'll give him over 18 fantasy points. It was his best game of the season. 4th game with at least 13 fantasy points. And Justin Herbert coming back, well, not coming off of bye, but I thought Stefania said something really illuminating about Herbert on FF Now before the games kicked off. And that was that she felt now was an appropriate time in which Justin Herbert could be as close to 100% as he might be from the rib injury that he suffered at the top of the season. And that now there might be game planning for him given the mobility that he had back, the comfort that he had back. And in fact, he passed for 245 yards, a touchdown, 1 interception. It was still his 6th. He has 6 touchdown passes in his first 2 games, 7 in 6 games since. So we're seeing him become more healthy. And now if he could just get his, number 2 receivers on the field, I think we could see that efficiency skyrocket even more.
Yeah, 43 pass attempts is something that you like from Justin Herbert, but I want to see him get into the end zone more often. And that's a thing that,
Mike talked about that on Fantasy Football Now. We'll talk about Tom Brady at the end of the show, but the big difference between last year and this year for Justin Herbert is that rushing yards down, touchdowns down. It's so hard when you have no one to throw the football to other than Austin Eckler. And just thank you, Austin. Thank you, Austin Eckler.
That's right.
I know that Mike tells us about regression, and it usually is correct. The thing about Austin Eckler is that he's regressing from those 20 touchdowns last year positively. He's now on pace for 21.25 touchdowns this season. He's ridiculous. I talked about this last week. He's still averaging 25 fantasy points per game.
Get out.
Next closest is Saquon at 20.2. Like, Saquon's having this absurdly awesome season, and Austin Eckler is like 125% of Saquon Barkley on a weekly basis. Like, that's just nuts. He is next level.
I feel like Mike Clayton's brain is going to melt when this happens.
Will.
If he scores 21 touchdowns, his regression-o-meter is just going to break. Right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it'll be like that year when Eric Ebron kept scoring touchdowns for the Colts. I don't want to talk about that year. Bob Tunyon. Anyways, these weird things happen in the game of football.
Speaking of weird things that happen, Field, I don't think this is weird, but
it's just good.
We had a board bet, you and I, about Cordero Patterson and Kareem Hunt. Yeah. Cordero Patterson, unfortunately, has been hurt for quite a while. We've watched the Falcons, who are one of the run-heaviest teams in the NFL, basically just run Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier over and over and over again. Now, first week back, we get Cordero Patterson, and both him and Tyler Algier are used pretty effectively here.
Yeah, you know what? This is good news here. It's bad news for Kyle Pitts and also Drake London. But I guess if there's any backfield that can support 2 backs, it's the backfield that is in the run-heaviest offense in the NFL, as Patterson had 13 carries for 44 yards. And here's what was really important. He found the end zone twice. That's good news. Good enough for 18.3 fantasy points. Meanwhile, Tyler Algier had 10 carries, so 3 fewer than Patterson, but he was way more effective. He had 99 rushing yards. He also added a 24-yard reception. So the good news, again, is that they're going to run the ball a ton because they're the Falcons, and they are the run-heaviest team in the NFL in terms of percentage of called plays. On Thursday night, they play the Panthers. You expect them to be in a positive or neutral game script, which allows them to continue to run the football a ton. The bad news is that they barely throw the ball to these guys. They combined for 2 catches, so they did both catch a pass. But if they don't score a touchdown, what we're learning is that, that could make for a very precarious spot. That being said, I'm going to continue to have Patterson ranked ahead of Tyler Algier as a low-end RB2. What do you got?
So why don't they just play Kyle Pitts or Drake London at running back if that's the only way you're going to get fantasy points out of these guys?
So
right?
I've been thinking about this because it is frustrating as all get out, and Kyle Pitts had to play late. There were a couple of...
Kyle Pitts at least had 7 targets this week.
And there was a play where Marcus Mariota overthrew him, and there were some opportunities that kind of slid by the wayside there. Drake London had a catch that was literally ripped away from him by Khalil Mack. That was crazy. And
it's Khalil Mack. What are you going to do?
He is the oversized 8-year-old who's you're how's 8th grade going? He's like, I'm 8 years old. It's 8th? No, you're 8 years old. There's no way. But what I'm telling myself, and I'm taking solace, I am trying to convince myself of this, especially for those of you out there who have either of those players in Dynasty or a Keeper League, is that the Falcons are doing this by necessity, not by preference, and that maybe a year from now, the offense has opened up more, and they'll start to tap into these unbelievable talents. It's not going to happen this year. It's another quiet day for both of those young superstars. But again, a dead even split in terms of snaps for Patterson over Algier. I'll have Patterson ranked ahead of Algier, as I mentioned, by a little bit, especially because if he gets more opportunities, I do think Patterson is a better natural receiver. That's why he was a wide receiver coming into the NFL. But a good showing for both of them. They ended up being useful if you did use them as either an RB2 or a flex. And speaking of useful, Liz, this is probably too gratuitous, but if I wanted to give Travis Etienne the MVP of my life award, would that be reasonable or not?
As someone who has a husband, I'm going to tell you no.
Okay,
That's not an appropriate answer.
Not a good idea.
But thanks for checking with me. You're welcome. I've got your back.
Sorry, my life, not your life. Yeah, my life. He's the MVP of my life.
But if we're talking about Travis Etienne, though, does deserve all of the superlatives. And also, what wonderful confirmation are we getting? There's no fluke here. The 24 carries last week aren't just a flash in the pan because he carried the ball 28 times this week for 109 yards, 2 rushing scores, plus he caught the ball twice for another 17 yards. He now joins Derrick Henry as the only other player with consecutive 24 carry and 2 catch games this year. I am mentioning Travis Etienne in the same company as Derrick Henry. So congratulations again to another set of truthers that stayed patient and loyal over the past 2 weeks. Etienne has managed 52 total carries, 57 total touches, 288 scrimmage yards, and 3 touchdowns, over 50 fantasy points.
He's been unreal.
He's been unbelievable.
And this has been one of the things that I've been wondering. I was talking to Thirsty Kyle about this heading into this conversation, Liz, and the question was, is this post-James Robinson usage something that has happened because of game script? Or do they actually just say, hey, you know what? We're going to give this kid elite level volume at the running back position. 2 straight weeks with 27 or more touches.
Yeah.
It's him and Derrick Henry. The only 2 players in the NFL with 2 weeks, consecutive weeks of 27 or more touches. That just doesn't happen.
So the game script definitely helps because he is still not a massive factor in the passing game. But it also is the fact that this guy just rules, right? Like,
awesome.
He's amazing at football. And there are different level of first-round running backs, right? We can have the philosophical debate about whether you should be using a premium pick on a running back, given the fact that, like, every time you turn, there's a guy coming out of nowhere who plays well. But as far as recent first-round running backs go, like, eye test-wise, Travis Etienne certainly has some of the most natural ability in the league. It's been awesome. Thank you, Jaguars fans. And thank you, Liz Loza, because you helped us win some money with Christian Kirk this weekend. Would you care to explain how that happened?
It's been great for, Christian Kirk, the Kirk coaster, if you will, has been a bit of a journey for fantasy managers. But as of recently, he's been pretty solid. 26 targets over his past 3 weeks. Today, he converted 8 of 9 for 76 yards and a touchdown. Now, it does bear mentioning that part of the reason he was so effective was because obviously the Raiders didn't have Nate Hobbs at their disposal, so the matchup was nice. But he continues to be peppered. And when we're talking about Travis Etienne, and Field, you're right to mention him not being quite as much of a factor in the passing game, that is actually helping Christian Kirk. So I think that Doug Peterson is kind of finding an efficient ecosystem here for the entire offense, right? He's got Etienne running. Etienne's only seeing a stacked front 50% of the time, but his ability that we know exists in the passing game is keeping defenders out, and that's letting Trevor Lawrence lean into his mobility a little bit more. And then in the short to intermediate game, they have Christian Kirk working as a legit safety valve for Lawrence. So we're all this beautiful ecosystem is really starting to work for the Jags, who did pull off a win today.
Right, ecosystem's too big of a word for me, but I agree with everything else that Liz just said.
I agree with that.
Come on.
I'm just kidding. I went to Wesleyan. I'm not that smart.
Wow.
We're
okay. All right. Here's one thing, though, Field, I will say this. I thought I had something I was going to say, and then you went with the ecosystem route, and then I got all thrown off by it. No, I'm thinking about it. Oh, you know what it is?
You were great on TV today.
Oh, hey, thanks, man. You were great on TV, too.
Yeah, I've had better.
No, I feel like when I'm looking at this team, right?
Yeah.
It's Trevor Lawrence, taking steps. Today wasn't great, but it wasn't a bad day either, right? Christian Kirk, they brought him in really, really fantastic free agent. From their draft class, obviously Travis Etienne, you like what their defense is doing. 1 year removed from this whole Urban Meyer experience of what Jaguars fans have had to deal with, you feel a lot better from that standpoint. All right, we're going to pay a couple of bills and then come back and talk about a few more names here first, though. ZipRecruiter wants you to know, did you know there are currently over 2.4 million podcasts in the world, including the one that you are listening to right now? And it takes a team of people to help bring these podcasts together. We've got people involved on the video side, on the audio side, the social media side, and it takes a lot to do this thing right, and hiring the right people is really important to that. And whether you're hiring for a podcast or for your growing business, there's only one place that makes it easy, ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. ZipRecruiter uses its powerful technology to find and match the right candidates up with your job. Additionally, ZipRecruiter has a complete suite of tools that makes it easy to filter, review, and rate your candidates. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So if you're a fan of this podcast and if you want to try ZipRecruiter for free, you need to remember our special URL, ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. Once again, that is ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Well, of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Football season is here, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Not only does Vivid Seats have great NFL ticket prices, they're also the official ticketing partner of ESPN. And with Vivid Seats rewards, when you buy 10 tickets, you get the 11th one free. Download the app and visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Receive a reward credit equal to the average price of 10 tickets purchased, excluding taxes, fees, and processing costs. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. All right, and we are talking about some disappointments, and disappointments are brought to you by Geico. Switch to Geico and see all the ways that you could save. And I want to start with a sit rep on DeAndre Swift. Do you know what sit rep is, Field?
Limited action sit rep. I have no idea.
It just stands for situational report.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Is that like a
That's
military,
a military term? Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So I tweeted right after 11:30.
Yep, you're smart. It's a good tweet.
Inactives came out and said, hey, DeAndre Swift is going to play. I moved him down to about running back 22 or 23 and said I would do everything that I can if I had any other option to not play DeAndre Swift, in part because last week, Coach Campbell was like, hey, you know what was too much? Like the 6 carries that we gave him.
Right, too much, yeah.
So now the idea that, all right, I get it. DeAndre Swift has been unbelievably efficient, and that's one of the things that's given him a lot of fantasy value. But he was obviously hurt coming into this game. I was worried about how they were going to utilize him. And again, we saw it this week. Week 9 snaps. Jamal Williams had 36. DeAndre Swift had 9.
Here's the amazing part to me, is that you guys got the win today, so it's great. It's a celebration day, right?
Fantastic, right?
But coming into the game at 1-6, DeAndre is a huge part of your future. Like, if he's only going to play 9 snaps, is it even worth having him play at all?
Yes, that's what I wondered from that standpoint.
So there's a trap that you fall into in the pregame of fantasy, like fantasy football, man. Like, we love it. It's the most beautiful thing in the world, right? At the same time, like, there are jobs that are impossible tasks, and trying to decipher what limited role means,
right?
Sometimes trying to decipher what it means when someone is the quote unquote starter is difficult in this silly game that we play, right? And go ahead, sorry.
How often do we say, like, oh, yeah, I would take 70% of Christian McCaffrey over 100% of this player any day? You know what I'm like? How do you decide?
It's just the way things roll. And absent specific information that says the Lions plan to play DeAndre Swift between 10 and 15 snaps, maybe less. The rules of fantasy football are, generally speaking, if you can, try to play your best players.
Yep.
And I know that stinks, and I know that you got disappointed by DeAndre Swift. I will be very curious to see what this leads into this upcoming week, what the rhetoric is surrounding his role, and whether he even plays next Sunday against the Bears. I know he played today, but if he's only able to play 9 snaps, maybe the coaching staff has to have a sort of a cost-benefit analysis, because you can only dress so many players per game.
Yeah.
And maybe there's more utility from a guy who is not as talented as DeAndre Swift, but can give you more snaps.
I played Rondale Moore over him in a league where I had both DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. I started Jamal Williams, sat DeAndre Swift, started Rondale Moore, and unfortunately for me, that was the right decision, even though I love DeAndre Swift. And I really quickly want to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, too, because he has been pretty disappointing.
Yeah, makes me nervous.
Coming back after the injury. One of the things, I looked at this with Kyle, and I want to talk about this, right? Weeks 1 and 2, he had over 20 fantasy points. And part of the reason why we talked about him was that elite usage that he was getting, 12, 13, 14 targets a game, right? He's had under 14 fantasy points in every single game since week 2. And I think part of it is this Lions offense. Weeks 1 through 3, they were 10th in plays per game and 1st in points scored in the NFL. They were leading the NFL in points scored. Weeks 4 through 8, they're now 20th in plays per game, and they're 21st in points scored. They're not getting in the end zone. This offense is not as explosive as it used to be, and in spite of the fact that the defense is getting crushed, it feels like the Lions, while always playing catch-up, are not playing catch-up with the same type of Amon-Ra St. Brown that we saw at the end of last year or beginning of this year, because post-high ankle sprain, things have not been all of what you've wanted. He hasn't looked like that top 15 lock-it-in guy that you've been expecting.
And what's surprising to me, Daniel, and I love the player so much, it's not even funny, is it's not like somebody else has stepped up, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Amon-Ra's fading because Josh Reynolds is going ham.
There was no Josh Reynolds this week.
There was no DJ Chark. There was no Khalif Raymond. I mean, he was there, but barely played, right? Like, it's not like they're getting
the ghost of
contributions.
DeAndre Swift. It's literally like there was nobody.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is I'm with you. And like, what are you going to do? The answer is like, you're still going to play Amon-Ra, but my hope that Amon-Ra had the chance to, remember, I mean, going into week 3 when he got hurt, or whatever it was, whatever week he got hurt, he was like wide receiver 7 in our consensus ranks, like 7th best overall. And that ended up being a little bit of a fool's errand, at least over the next handful of weeks. We'll see. Still love the player and still optimistic about a bounce back, but maybe he's back down to, sort of like that wide receiver 2-ish territory because he's just not seeing the volume that you hope for coming into the season.
Yeah.
All right.
He's not seeing the volume, but also Jared Goff only threw the ball like what 26 times today.
Yeah, we want
so
that.
I feel like
just as Lions fans,
and the game script went a certain way that Dan Campbell was not going to be like, all right, I'm going to let Jared Goff, you know who he is, right? Like air it out when we don't need to. Let's keep this close. Let's lean on Jamal Williams. We know we can do. Jamal Williams, by the way, nice revenge game. But like the volume's not going to be there if the game script isn't there. And we're used to, at the top of the season, the Lions were playing catch up in a much different way. So I think it's something that we need to brace for moving forward, despite what, Vegas might say via the spreads.
Yep. A little bit of Arthur Smith in the Detroit Lions right now with the way that maybe they're utilizing Jamal Williams. They're trying to make sure that Dan Campbell needs to win games for the Detroit Lions.
They need to.
And if they're finding ways that like Jamal Williams, by the way, Jamal Williams is still unbelievable in fantasy. He just keeps finding ways to be able to be useful for your fantasy lineup. So.
80 plus rushing yards and a 2-point conversion today for J. Will. I want both of you to think of something positive over the next few minutes because we have to lament some other fantasy performances here as we continue with our disappointments. And all right, so DJ Moore came back down to earth. No surprise. At some point it was going to happen, right? He had 6 targets, but he had just 2 catches for 24 yards.
Wait, but I need to ask a question about this field.
Please, do go for it.
Because, this was literally perfect game script for, they were getting blown out. It should have been nothing but passes.
And it was, except for the fact that the Bengals defense is pretty good. And by the time the game got out of hand, I'd have to go check the box score specifically.
It was midway through the third.
But it felt like there was a point where they yanked some of the starters. So maybe DJ Moore had a fewer snaps than normal. 6 targets in every game this season for DJ Moore, but we kind of know already that you have to ride the wave. But Liz, I got a question for you. The Colts said that Matt Ryan was benched in part because of a shoulder injury, which was going to cost him likely 2 weeks. But they also said that they're turning the keys over to Sam Ehlinger for the rest of the season. That was their plan. Listen, I hate to be the person that just comes on various ESPN platforms and talks about how coaches are dumb and they suck and we know more than they do, because they don't. I will just say this. I'll ask this. After watching the Colts today, who were 0 for 14 on 3rd down and had 9 sacks given up of Sam Ehlinger, I know Matt Ryan wasn't playing well, but don't you think the offense looked better a couple weeks ago than it does now?
I think you just hit the major stat, though. 9 sacks. Everybody was calling Matt Ryan washed, but maybe it's the offensive line. And let's also think about the fact that Sam Ehlinger is a mobile quarterback, right? Aren't mobile quarterbacks don't need a lot of protection? They can evade all of that, right, with their legs. That's not happening. Now, maybe it's because Jonathan Taylor wasn't available and he's, in fact, the linchpin of this offense. And if he is missing, then Bill Belichick, who loves to take away the team's number 1, has a much easier choice and just erases Michael Pittman. But it is not pretty for the Colts. I do, though, have to commend Frank Reich for at least trying something, right? Like, instead of doing that thing that head coaches do where they're just like, nope, this is the game plan. We know best. At least, if you're going to make a mistake, make a big mistake and learn something.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, the end result for Michael Pittman was 3 catches, 22 yards. I don't recall who they play next week. Obviously, they play the Raiders next week. So, well, that's a good opportunity for the passing offense. But yeah, it's just frustrating, because wide receiver play is not strictly the wide receiver. It's the quarterback involved as well. And it was non-functional.
Is it more or less frustrating field than Chris Godwin having 7 catches for 36 yards? Is it more or less frustrating than Mike Evans having 5 catches for 40 yards?
Not only that, but the Bucs just keep dropping passes. They ended up winning this game. The Bucs beat the Rams. How? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Do you remember at the beginning of the season when we looked at this and it's like, oh man, NFC Championship rematch.
By the way, the Bucs get this win to improve to 4-5.
That's
right.
Bad.
They still have a losing record, but yes, we kept talking about some really important things with Tom Brady that have persisted, and those numbers that were important were attempts and passing yards. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Tom Brady threw the ball damn near 60 times today. 60 times! Yeah. If I told you that Tom Brady was going to throw 60 times, you'd be like, all in, baby. Let's go. Let's ride, to quote Russell Wilson. I should probably not use that anymore.
Probably not anymore, yeah.
No.
Anyways, not good. And you think good things for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who, by the way, how many targets does Chris Godwin have over the past 4 weeks, if you had to guess?
Over the last 4, a ton. He's had
50. It may be 1 or 2 less, but 50 targets over a 4-game stretch. That would be a pace of about 210 for the entire season, right? That's absurd for Chris Godwin. They just can't convert the stuff that matters right now.
No.
And we knew it was a bad matchup coming into this game. Mike Clay talked about it all week. Be careful what you wish for against this Rams defense. Ended up being correct, even though Brady got the late touchdown to Cade Otton, who, by the way, has looked good for them, the rookie tight end. It's just been a bad stretch of football. I don't know when that light switch flips for the Buccaneers, and the answer is maybe it won't. But unlike Aaron Rodgers, the silver lining continues to be this. A, there are other worse quarterbacks, and B, 60 passing attempts.
It's not just that for me, because as much as I don't want to say dislike Aaron Rodgers, I just mean as a fantasy player.
Sure.
As much as I dislike Aaron Rodgers, right? Tom Brady has Chris Godwin. He's got Mike Evans. He's got unbelievable assets around him where it's man, if Aaron Rodgers had those things, then I would be feeling different. But Tom, what are you doing here? And in part, Liz, part of this is he's got Leonard Fournette too running the football, and Leonard Fournette, has not been doing all the things that Uncle Lenny needs to do with the football either.
No, Uncle Lenny also got a little upset because he wasn't feeling like he was being properly utilized. And it's well, you got to be more efficient, buddy. First of all, Leonard Fournette has been under 15 fantasy points for 3 straight games. He's also only recorded single-digit carries, and each of those efforts, the over-under for rushing yards for Leonard Fournette heading into this game was 48.5. And I was like, oh, man, do I take the under on that? That seems crazy. I mean, I know the matchup, but under 48.5 rushing yards for Leonard Fournette? No, he ended up with 19 rushing yards. Are you kidding me?
That's
and
under. That
I
would have
love
been under
that
if
Field
you bet it,
mentioned
Liz.
that Tom Brady threw the ball 58 times, and Leonard Fournette only saw 7 looks on a day that Tom Brady threw the ball near 60 times.
Yeah. I'm actually okay. That number actually is okay by me. It's just the efficiency is so poor. It is so poor. But the Bucs got the win. It's a huge win for them. Maybe it turns their season around. And by the way, they're in first place in their own division. How about this? The entire AFC East winning record. The entire NFC South losing record. It's a good time to be an NFC South team, even if you're not very good.
Even if you're not very good. Yeah.
Let's close on a positive thought here.
Are you talking about?
Two positive thoughts.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want people to feel happy. DeAndre Hopkins scored again.
Yeah.
He's been awesome. It was a red-hot start for DeAndre Hopkins today. A slower finish, but he did find the end zone. Welcome back, D-Hop. And then Kenneth Walker III, dude.
Oh, my gosh.
Love you.
He's
Whole heart.
so good.
Whole
Amazing.
Heart. I remember writing about this in Field Pass maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we talked about it here too, is that I don't like to use the word league winner that often because I just think it gets way overutilized, right? But Kenneth Walker sort of smelled like a league winner.
Yep.
And we still have a lot of season left as of Tuesday morning when you guys hear from us next. We will be halfway through the NFL regular season. But Kenneth Walker, man, You probably got him either late in your draft or maybe even off of waivers, and he has been remarkable. Good job by you, Dig. I just wanted to let you know you did awesome today.
Hey, you did awesome today, too. Shout out to our friend Boston Connor, too. He also did pretty awesome
Dude,
today.
Connor, football guy.
Hey,
Second
now.
of all, rich football guy. Respect.
That's right. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Liz. Like, whenever you come and spend time with Field and I just always feel like we leave it in a better place. You
Life
know what
gets
I mean?
better, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. To all our fans, on behalf of everybody, please know how much we love you. Thank you for listening to us. Be kind to yourself and come back. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good week.
Travis Kelce and Chiefs defense, please combine for less than 30 fantasy points right now.
Ooh, yikes.
Not asking for a
Yikes.
friend. I'm asking for myself.